I speak 9 languages, said the young black woman. The judge laughed, but was speechless when he heard her. The laughter echoed through the courtroom like cruel thunder. Judge Harrison Foster leaned back in his chair, wiping tears of amusement from his eyes as he watched the 24-year-old standing before him with her hands cuffed. 9 languages, he repeated between laughs. Miss Williams, this is a court of law, not a television talent show. Keisha Williams stood motionless, her brown eyes fixed on the magistrate who would decide her fate. Accused of forging college diplomas to get work as a translator at multinational companies, she had been arrested at her small home on the outskirts of Atlanta 3 days earlier, in front of shocked neighbors and TV cameras that turned her misfortune into national entertainment. Prosecutor Marcus Thompson, a white man in an impeccable suit and a condescending smile, dramatically leafed through the documents on his desk. Your Honor, the defendant claims to be fluent in English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, Arabic, German, Russian, Japanese, and Portuguese. She only has a high school education and grew up in a housing project. The fraud is obvious. It's true that I don't have any college degrees, Keisha said calmly, surprising everyone in the room. Most defendants remained silent during preliminary hearings. But that doesn't mean I lie about what I can do. Judge Foster raised an eyebrow, his amusement turning to irritation. Miss Williams, I suggest you stop prolonging this embarrassment. We have evidence that you charged thousands of dollars for services you clearly could not provide. With all due respect, Your Honor, Keisha replied, her posture straight despite the handcuffs, you are judging me without hearing me out. If you'll allow me to demonstrate... Demonstrate? Foster burst out laughing again. What are you going to do? Recite the Chinese alphabet? In the front row of the gallery, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a defense attorney who had offered to represent Keisha pro bono after seeing the case in the news, watched with growing indignation. She had tried to dissuade her client from insisting on this demonstration, but Keisha had remained adamant. She wanted her chance to prove the truth. Your Honor, Dr. Rodriguez stood up, my client has the right to defend herself properly. If she claims to have these abilities, why not allow her to demonstrate them? Foster adjusted his glasses, clearly annoyed. Because it's ridiculous, Dr. Rodriguez. Look at her. A young, black woman, no higher education, raised in the suburbs. How the hell would she speak 9 languages? The silence that followed was deafening. Journalists in the gallery exchanged shocked glances. Some members of the jury shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The racist comment had been said out loud, recorded, broadcast live. But Keisha showed no surprise. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment something dangerous flashed in her gaze. Not anger, but cold determination. It was the expression of someone who had faced the same doubt thousands of times before and developed infinite patience to prove others' ignorance. Your Honor, she said with a calmness that made the air in the room seem thicker, you have just proven exactly why I am here. Not because I lied about my abilities, but because I live in a world that refuses to believe that people like me can have extraordinary talents. Foster frowned, realizing he had stepped on dangerous ground. But it was too late. The cameras had captured everything, and something in Keisha's tone suggested that she wasn't just another desperate defendant trying to escape fair charges. It was as if she were guarding a secret too powerful to reveal before the right time, patiently waiting for the system to dig its own grave of prejudice and ignorance. If this story of injustice and determination touched you as much as it touched millions who followed the case, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because what happened next would prove that underestimating people based on appearances is always a devastatingly costly mistake. Judge Foster's racist comment echoed through the room like a bomb. Within seconds, the courtroom turned into a silent battlefield. Journalists typed frantically, lawyers whispered amongst themselves, and on social media, the clip was already spreading like wildfire. Your Honor, Dr. Rodriguez stood up again, her voice sharp. I request that this comment be removed from the record and a public apology be made to my client. Foster adjusted his robe, clearly irritated at being confronted. Dr. Rodriguez, I merely expressed a statistical reality. How many people of that socioeconomic background actually master 9 languages? Let's be practical. Keisha remained motionless, but something changed in her breathing. Her fists clenched subtly inside the handcuffs, and for a moment her eyes closed, as if she were accessing some distant and powerful memory. Prosecutor Thompson took advantage of the tension to intensify his attack. Your Honor, we have here 3 multinational companies that hired the defendant's services. Global Tech lost a $2 million contract due to incorrect translations from English to Mandarin. Diplomatic Solutions had legal documents rejected by embassies due to grotesque errors in French and Arabic. He waved a stack of papers dramatically. And most seriously, the International Aid Foundation had its humanitarian proposal rejected by the UN because the Russian translations were so bad they looked like a joke. This is not just fraud. It is sabotage of organizations trying to help people in need. Each accusation was like a public stab in the back. Keisha could feel the judgmental glances from the gallery, the weight of disbelief, the automatic assumption of guilt that always accompanied people like her. But there was something strange about her reaction. She didn't seem surprised, just sad, as if she knew exactly where these allegations were coming from. Miss Williams, Foster leaned forward, his voice taking on a false paternal tone. You have a chance here to admit your mistakes, accept a plea bargain, and perhaps receive a lighter sentence. Stop this charade and be honest. It was then that Keisha opened her eyes and did something that surprised everyone in the room. She smiled. Not a bitter or defeated smile, but one that carried knowledge. The kind of smile someone wears when they know something others don't. Your Honor, she said calmly, may I ask a question about these companies that are accusing me? Thompson frowned. What kind of question? I would like to know exactly when Global Tech realized that my translation wasn't correct. Was it before or after they found out that I didn't have a college degree? An uncomfortable silence fell.
That's irrelevant. And Diplomatic Solutions, Keisha continued, her voice gaining strength. Did they reject my work before or after they found out I grew up in Mechanicsville? Mechanicsville was Atlanta's poorest housing project, known nationally for its crime and social neglect. The mention of the name made several members of the jury shift uncomfortably. Dr. Rodriguez saw where her client was going and stood up. Objection, Your Honor. My client is raising legitimate questions about possible discrimination. Overruled, Foster banged his gavel. The defendant's background does not justify fraud. But Keisha wasn't finished. Your Honor, you mentioned that it's statistically unlikely for someone of my background to speak 9 languages. May I ask how many people of my background you actually know? Foster's face flushed. Ms. Williams, you are testing my patience. I'm not testing anything, Keisha replied, her voice taking on a hypnotic quality, as if each word were carefully chosen. I'm just trying to understand whether this court judges competence or appearance. It was at that moment that something extraordinary happened. In the gallery, an elderly woman with gray hair stood up quietly. It was Mrs. Chun, a retired teacher who had been following the case in the news. Her eyes were fixed on Keisha with a look of growing recognition. The conversation in the courtroom continued, but Mrs. Chun whispered to the person next to her, I know that girl. Keisha, as if sensing the gaze, turned briefly toward the gallery. When her eyes met Mrs. Chun's, something passed between them, a connection, a shared memory, a secret that was about to change everything. Mrs. Chun took out her cell phone and began typing an urgent message. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Thompson resumed his attack. Your Honor, regardless of the interesting sociological issues the defendant is raising, we have concrete evidence of incompetence. She has caused real damage to legitimate businesses. And how? Keisha interrupted softly. Do you know that my translations were incorrect? Do you speak Mandarin, Arabic, Russian? Thompson hesitated. We have experts who have verified. Experts, Keisha repeated, and again that mysterious smile appeared. Interesting, because I'd love to meet those experts, especially the ones who checked my work on specific Beijing dialects, or Moroccan versus Egyptian Arabic, or academic versus commercial Russian. The level of specificity made several linguists in the gallery lean forward. This wasn't the language of someone faking knowledge. These were distinctions only true polyglots would make. Mrs. Chun had finished typing and hit send on a message that read, I found Keisha Williams. It's her. Get everything ready now. Foster, realizing he was losing control of the situation, decided to end the charade. Enough. This ridiculous show is over before it even began. I'll schedule the trial for 1 moment, Your Honor. A new voice cut through the air. Everyone turned to see an elegant middle-aged man entering the courtroom. His suit was impeccable, his posture commanded respect, and in his hand he carried a leather briefcase that seemed to contain important secrets. Dr. James Morrison, retired ambassador to the United Nations, he introduced himself, walking to the front of the room. I apologize for the interruption, but I believe I have information relevant to this case. Foster frowned. Dr. Morrison, this is a court in session. You can't just... Your Honor, Morrison interrupted politely, I have worked with translators and interpreters for 30 years on diplomatic missions around the world, and I can attest under oath that I am personally familiar with the work of Keisha Williams. The silence that followed was absolute. Keisha looked at Morrison with an expression that was a mixture of surprise and something like relief, as if a crucial piece of a complex puzzle had just fallen into place. Thompson jumped out of his chair. Objection! This man was not previously registered as a witness, but Morrison had already opened his briefcase. I have here documents from the United Nations, stamped and signed, proving that Ms. Williams has worked as a freelance translator for 3 international humanitarian missions over the past 2 years. Her services were not only satisfactory, but exceptional. Foster seemed to have swallowed his tongue. Thompson frantically leafed through his papers as if looking for a way to disqualify evidence he clearly hadn't expected. And Keisha? She simply closed her eyes, as if accessing an inner strength she had saved for this very moment. When she opened them, determination gleamed in her gaze. Your Honor, she said in a voice that now carried authority, I accept your offer of a demonstration, but not here, not like this, not as a spectacle for your amusement. She paused, scanning every face in the room, the arrogant judge, the desperate prosecutor, her hopeful lawyer, and the gallery filled with people who had come to witness her humiliation. If this court truly seeks justice, then allow me to demonstrate not only that I speak 9 languages, but why 3 powerful companies would be willing to lie to destroy a young black woman from the outskirts who dares to compete in their world.